That disappointing loss at home in Game 3, Shaq was on Inside the NBA, and he said the Spurs' response needed to be led by Wemby.
I'm going to need Wemby to do more. Game 1, he had 41-24, they won. Game 2, 21-26. It's not enough. And I can say that as Lord Supreme of all big men.
Lord Supreme. He has the best titles for himself. All right, so how did Wemby respond? After Game 3, he said he needed to be a better overall teammate and help his guys get better. Well, it started there on the defensive end with that big block, and then how about that move? And then follows up his miss. Just all the things. And then right before the half, this is what everyone will remember from this game. I mean, that's a straight jump shot from half court. He had 22 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks in the first half. That's almost identical to his stat line from all of Game 3. But more importantly, his team had a 12-point lead at the break, third quarter. Stephon Castle, the lob over 2 defenders and 1. The double-digit lead would increase. Wemby, 33 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 blocks. First Spur with those numbers in a playoff game since Tim Duncan back in 2008. We head to Game 5 Tuesday in OKC.
So many people are responsible for how your offense in particular runs, but is part of Victor becoming like one of those great players to feel that obligation? It's like it's his responsibility to set that tone.
You know, I think a lot of people would say that, and regardless of that, I think that's what he wants. I think he wants that responsibility and to be in the lead there, and he's built for it. When you get into these series, we spoke pregame about the chess match, and you can get into a little bit of a whirlwind in terms of, do I adjust and counter, or do I just want to do it better? And both answers are right when you talk about them in a meeting room. And those guys have done a great job of executing a little bit of both. And I thought tonight was probably their best performance, maybe of the year, because of the circumstances of just being better at a lot of things.
You know, I think overall, you know, they played like their season was on the line and we didn't. You know, it shows in the box score. So.
All right, for some more perspective on the Spurs win here in Game 4, bringing in Stephen A. Smith. And, Steve, it felt like San Antonio lost that home court advantage they stole in Game 1 as fast as they got it with their Game 3 loss at home. But what type of statement did they make to come back and even this series tonight?
Honestly speaking, I don't think they made much of a statement. One team came to play, the other team did not. When you look at Oklahoma City, you know, you got to give San Antonio credit from the standpoint that they recognized the urgency of the moment, and they were led by Victor Wembanyama, who dropped about 33, and he obviously was a force. But there's not many nights that you're going to see the Oklahoma City Thunder shooting about 15% from three-point range and about 30% from the field. And a lot often, they had some open shots, and they just weren't making them. They were flat all night. They didn't come to play. They came and showed up like a team that had handled their business in Game 3, so we don't have to have the urgency in Game 4 that we had in Game 3, and they played like it. So I thought they were flat tonight. It would be one thing if they came out and they was making shots and then San Antonio put the clamps in them or what have you, but they were missing shots all night long. Nobody looked the way they normally looked, including SGA. And Chet Holmgren has been a virtual no-show throughout most of this series, so that hasn't helped either.
Well, considering how well they played in Game 3 after being down 15-0 to come back and win that game, and their championship medal going back to last season, how surprising are you that they were so flat in Game 4?
I am a little bit surprised because they're champions and they know what it takes. But you got to remember, I was covering the Western Conference Finals last year when Minnesota rolled up on them and beat them by 40. I think it was like in Game 3. They were up by as many as 44 points. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander walked off the court with a smile on his face, clapping like there was absolutely no concern whatsoever. And then they came back the next game and they beat Minnesota. So they tend to have these games from time to time where they're a bit flat. There's no denying that. But you did expect them, considering how tough they know San Antonio to be, considering the fact that they had San Antonio on its heels after winning Game 3. You didn't expect them to come out and be as flat as they were, but they just were. It just happened.
All right, so now it's a 3-game series. Wemby goes for 30-plus in Game 4. Now they got to go on the road to try to get home court advantage back. What are you expecting from him in that game, considering what he did here in Game 4?
Well, I think it's going to be a physical matchup in Game 5. There's an urgency at the moment. Oklahoma City does not want to go back to San Antonio down 3-2-5, Game 5. You don't want to say it's a must-win because you saw them win Game 3, and they are the reigning defending champions. But nevertheless, it's going to be an important game. You don't want to go back to San Antonio down 3-2, in my opinion. And so if you're the Oklahoma City Thunder, you've got to be ready. Art Stein is going to play a pivotal role because the physicality that he's going to try to throw in Wemby's direction is something that he's gotten away with in a couple of wins this season in this playoff series, and maybe he'll be able to get away with it again in Game 5. If you're San Antonio, you've got to offset that. In my opinion, one of the things they might want to consider to do is making sure you consistently have a big out there with Wembyama, get him off the 5, not subjecting him to the level of physicality that you know they're going to throw in his direction. Have somebody else as a big body to preoccupy some space on the front line and use Wemby as a 4 or dare I say even a 3 since he's got that skill set. I think those are the kind of things that will facilitate a level of success. They got to take that into consideration, but we'll see what they ultimately do. In the end, however, San Antonio has regained some momentum because they go to Oklahoma City knowing if they're able to win Game 5, then you've got a big-time problem because then Oklahoma City would have to go back to San Antonio down 3-2 instead of up 3-2, and that's going to really put them on their heels. So Game 5 is definitely pivotal for both teams, but in my opinion, especially OKC.
And it goes down Tuesday, and they won Game 1, they lose 2, now they come back and win Game 4. What's been the common denominator in their wins here?
That guy we just got through listening to. And you know, my grandparents used to always tell me, he's young, but he got an old soul, baby. And that's what we just watched, and
Yes.
that's what we just listened to in that interview. And when you talk about leadership, that's the true definition of leadership. See, Wemby is not afraid of getting uncomfortable. He's not afraid of holding himself accountable and maxing out. And tonight what we saw was a response that we expected. We saw him be a big man first and then show guard skills. When he come out with that mindset of I'm going to dominate the paint on both ends of the floor, the Spurs are unbeatable. But when he comes out and he's timid and he's soft and he's trying to do other things that's not being Wemby type things, and that means being the most dominant player in the league, then they struggle. But tonight was one of those nights. And I also look at the 5 assists. When you're able to get yours and make guys around you better, that's called growth and that's called leadership.
And that's what he said he knew to do better after Game 3.
The interesting thing here is what they did to the Thunder, because so much of that game felt like the Thunder just couldn't do anything. Nothing was falling. What were the Spurs doing? Why couldn't they hit anything?
You saw them dogs out there. And it started with Stephon Castle. I didn't know whether to call him a Doberman or a pit bull, the way they sicked him on SGA today. And he the one that really, yes, Wemby was the best player on the floor, but Stephon Castles actually set the tone from the jump with his physicality. To be honest, I have never seen anybody in the league be able to guard SGA 101 like we're witnessing right now in Stephon Castle. That wasn't a lot of doubling coming. That was me and you, mano a mano. Everything was tough. The catches was tough. Him getting the ball, SGA trying to get the ball up the floor was tough. He was challenging his shots without fouling. He kept them off the free throw line. All across the board, I thought Stephon Castle tonight was the unsung hero of this game, while Wemby was the best player on the floor.
Yeah, young fellow was not scared of the moment or the assignment.